Hello, with a warm welcome to my podcast, My World, Your World, with tales of imagination and inspiration. My name is Jochen Seitz. I love metaphors and try to paint pictures of our world with various mirrors showing many different perspectives. I invite you to let your thoughts wander, but be warned. If you engage with my stories, you might think differently afterward than before, and that's precisely my intention. Yes, I hope to make the world a little better through my stories. And today I have a special surprise and a premiere for you. I have started writing lyrics, and for today's story I have created a song to accompany it. After all, what better way to convey emotions than through melody? With some intelligent help composing the music, I believe the result truly reflects the effort, so kindly listen to the song following the story, which serves as a summary. The story today speaks for itself. Now imagine you're invited to an all-inclusive resort. What would you think if another guest suddenly starts digging into the soil, claiming a certain area as his own? My World, Your World, where imagination meets inspiration. The resort. "We have truly earned this," she said to her husband as they walked through the gate into the resort and beheld its abundance. The path led them along a narrow trail through a forest of large trees with ripe fruit, passing fields filled with the most luscious produce. Their destination was a residential complex in the heart of this paradise, where they had been invited to stay for an extended period. In the resort, they encountered other guests who seemed to have been there for a longer time. In any case, the newcomers were warmly welcomed by some of them. They were shown to their accommodation, which, though Spartan, was tastefully furnished. They had largely refrained from bringing luggage, as the invitation had stated that everything necessary for their stay would be provided at the resort. The friendly couple who escorted them to their room invited them to join them for dinner and offered them to show them around the property in the coming days. The details in the invitation were indeed not exaggerated. The facility lacked nothing. Everything essential was abundantly available. One could eat whatever one felt like or do whatever one pleased. Gradually they got to know the other guests and arranged various activities together. Some painted, carved wood, or modeled with clay, while others made music, played sports, or simply enjoyed each other's company. The resort was a place of constant comings or goings. New guests arrived daily, and others departed when their stay came to an end, returning home. One day, during their excursions, they met Gerhard, who had only recently arrived and seemed somewhat disturbed. Gerhard had begun to till part of the fertile soil in order to grow grain. When asked why he was doing this, given that there was an abundance of food, he replied that he feared the supply might one day run out, and he needed the assurance of having enough food. Gerhard even built a small hut next to his field, where he lived and stored his homemade tools. Naturally, word of Gerhard's actions spread quickly through the resort. Most people paid little attention to him, dismissing him as an eccentric. After all, there was always more than enough food and everything else they needed. However, some others seemed to catch Gerhard's fear, as they soon followed his example and staked out additional parts of the large garden, which they plowed and planted with their own crops. They too built structures to store their tools and later their harvests to protect them from unwanted access. Slowly, a trade developed between the so-called self-sufficients. They exchanged their produce with each others and guarded their supplies against envious eyes. Even the artwork of other companions, which had previously been given only to friends, could now be acquired, provided the price was high enough. Over time, fear spread among the guests that the paradisical life might one day come to an end. When Gerhard eventually baked bread from his grain and shared it with the others to try, it was the tipping point for most. Now everyone wanted something to trade, from food to a self-painted picture or a carved spoon. There were no limits to the creativity in what could be exchanged. By then, Gerhard and the first people who had begun working the land had divided the entire area and the resort among themselves. No one could expand or cultivate new areas without their permissions, unless they gave up a portion of their earnings. Naturally, these demands were seen as unfair, but Gerhard and the others could defend their claims well with the tools they had made. Eventually, the wild fruits were no longer enough to feed everyone, as some had secured too much for themselves. Soon they even began letting some of the fruit spoil, so the value of the remaining produce would rise, until there was not enough for everyone. In the end, Gerhard's fear had proven correct. Everyone had to fend for themselves to get by, all while Gerhard and the others profited greatly from the situation. The day came when Gerhard's stay in the resort came to an end, and it was time to say goodbye. Even on that day he worked until the last minute on his fields, counting the yield and keeping records. He could take nothing with him, as, like everyone else, he had arrived without luggage. There are countless reasons to continue accumulating possessions and to defend them against others. And there are just as many reasons not to do so.
We walk through gates of open light, where trees bend low with fruit and grace. A path of green, the air was bright, no hunger written on a face. No locks, no clocks, no need to save. The days were wide, the nights were clear. We took what came, what grew we gave. The world felt endless, calm and near. We felt this is what we deserve, a heaven-earned, a perfect state. But fear learned how to shake the earth and gently led our hands astray. Then one man dug into the ground. He said, what if this all runs dry? He built his walls and claimed his bound, and taught the rest to fear goodbye. War fields were cut, though it was wrong. The open land got fenced and sold. What once was art, a gift, a song, now had a price and had to hold. We thought this is what we deserve, security bought with silent dread. But fear became the law we served, and crowned itself inside our heads. They left the fruit decay and shade, so what remained was worth much week outside the door. They stopped seeing faces, only claims, measured worth by what was stored or traded. Helping began to fade, a selfish aims turned compassion where profit waited. We said this is what we deserve, and called it progress, fair and wise. Nothing really left to preserve outside the gates of paradise. He left with nothing in his hands, no bags, no grain, no earned reward. His own paradise was built on sand, improved to ruin by our hoard. We wish we would have thought twice after years of hopeless life, in a world that gave without a prize. When will we learn what counts in love? We watched our fear and hunger rise at the gates of lost paradise.
The Resort by Jochen Seitz. If you like what you've heard, it might be your intention to share my story. Please feel free and go ahead. Let us push the world towards humanity. All the best and be blessed.